There's a lot to talk about right now in Cleveland football. A really intense quarterback battle, and maybe Deshun Watson can enter it later in the season if he returns. There's a lot to talk about in Cleveland Browns football. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Chase's Sports News. I am your host, Chase Coburn. We are previewing each of the 32 NFL team seasons before the season does get started here on Chase's Sports News. And today we preview the Cleveland Browns' upcoming year with a very special guest, a Browns beat reporter for Cleveland.com, Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm glad you're here. I know it's been a little while now since Brown's minicamp ended. Obviously, the quarterback situation is one to keep an eye out for. Overall, what stood out to you from minicamp?
Well, they're in the midst of a four-way quarterback competition, and that's what I watched most of the time. And it seems to me right now that although the rookies are really coming up the learning curve very nicely, I still think that it's probably going to come down to either Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco by the time the season starts and when they get out there in week one. I think it's really hard for a rookie, especially a third-round rookie and a fifth-round rookie, to overtake one of these two veterans. So that's the way that I'm seeing it, but that's what minicamp was all about.
Obviously, Joe Flacco wasn't there last year, but has experience with this Cleveland system with some of the guys there. So maybe just his experience. And he's been, I think, an 18-year veteran. So obviously, he's a terrific player who you could possibly throw in there. That 2023 team led by Flacco, that was a playoff team. Stefanski won Coach of the Year. Garrett was Defensive Player of the Year. It felt like things were trending in the right direction. But with Deshun Watson under center to begin the year, the team just got worse. And they weren't really able to adjust even once he re-injured himself. They only won 3 games. Outside of the quarterback position, what else do you believe contributed to the drastic fall-off in production from 2024 compared to 2023?
Well, they tried to overhaul the complete offensive system, and it just didn't go well for anybody. It didn't go well for the offensive line and the blocking schemes. It didn't go well for the running game. Nick Chubb was just coming back from his devastating knee injury. They had injuries at the tackle position. So that had a lot to do with what was going on just offensively in general. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they had a number of injuries, but they just also were not able to take the ball away. They were very, very low in terms of takeaways, and in terms of the turnover differential, they were at the bottom of the barrel. So you're not going to win very many games like that. Those are some areas that they need to pick up.
Obviously, the Browns offseason, when you're looking to possibly improve this team, I mean, they were clearly active during the draft. You trade down to the 5th pick, get a future first-round pick, and then you select 2 quarterbacks in the middle rounds. What is your overall assessment on how Cleveland handled the draft process?
Well, I didn't really have any problem with them trading back from number 2 to number 5 with the Jaguars, picking up that extra first-round pick next year, and then still being able to get Mason Graham at number 5 overall. And then they also completely overhauled their running game with the next 2 picks that they got this year out of that draft in acquiring Quinshawn Judkins and Dylan Sampson. So they really made some powerful moves with these picks. And I think in the long run, it just might be a win for the Cleveland Browns in this trade. We'll see how that goes. The key, of course, is what they do with the quarterback position and what they do with Jacksonville's first-round pick next year. Do they package it with their own pick, move up to get a quarterback? If they end up with their quarterback of the future out of this trade, then I think it's got to be a win for them.
Of course, and obviously we'll have to see what Mason Graham can provide there in the interior of that defensive line. I mean, this team was active throughout the whole offseason as well. I mean, I don't think they probably had it planned that they were going to select 2 quarterbacks, but I think as Shedeur kept falling, they're like, why not take a shot on this guy in the 5th round, a guy who some people had mocked as high as 3, 3rd overall in the pre-draft process. So obviously, very interesting draft. I also do love what they did. They were one of my biggest winners from the draft. But this offseason, they added back Flacco, Kenny Pickett. Now you have 4 quarterbacks among their many additions and departures. Just overall in the offseason, how do you feel this team is positioned compared to last year?
Well, it's all going to come down to the quarterback. Even veteran players such as Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, a lot of these guys in the offseason said, we're a quarterback away. David Njoku even said it when I talked to him at the Super Bowl on Radio Row, that we are a quarterback away from winning. And what we don't know yet is, do they have a quarterback in their building right now who can win for them on a consistent basis this season? Joe Flacco did win here. He went 4-1 in 2023, but that was 2 years ago. Now he's 40 years old. Let's see what he's able to do 2 years later. He's got to stop turning the ball over as much as he did, especially in Indy last year. So, that's the key with him is he's got to protect the football. And then Kenny Pickett, we really haven't seen Kenny Pickett be a starter since the 2023 season. He learned a lot last year in Philadelphia, working with Kellen Moore, working alongside Jalen Hurts, but we
Right.
really don't know how quickly he's going to be able to adapt to this offensive scheme. I think he should be able to flourish in it, but you never really know until you get out there in the heat of the moment. Will he be able to have it down pat enough to really excel? So really need to keep an eye on that with those guys. And then once again, with the rookies, they have some excellent qualities, some excellent traits. Both of them do. But once again, I think if you're going to see them this year, it will probably be in the second half of the season, and really not something that I think anybody is going to witness in week one.
Which do you believe is more likely to kind of receive that second half starting position if they decide to go away from one of the veterans and go to a rookie? Obviously, it's so early to tell. We haven't even seen training camp, but do you think it would be more likely that Gabriel receives a spot or Sanders?
It's hard to say right now because they each have things that they have to prove before they're going to get out there on the field. Now, if it were tomorrow and they had to make that decision, it would be Dylan Gabriel, because not just because he was drafted ahead of Shedeur Sanders, but because
Right.
he came in ahead of Shedeur Sanders, just in terms of knowledge of this type of pro scheme and just the ability to nail the whole pre-snap process in terms of terminology and playbook and sliding protections and calling motions and all that kind of stuff. He's just ahead of the game. It doesn't mean that Shador can't catch up, but Dylan came in a little bit ahead of him in that regard.
I feel like the wild card though about the quarterback position is Deshun Watson. You wrote recently that he could return in like late November, maybe the December range of 2025 if his progression from returning from his injury does go well. Even if he is healthy though, shouldn't Cleveland just kind of stick with one of these other guys and not try to again put themselves in what has seemingly been a Deshun Watson mess and just scrap the whole situation?
Well, I think it's a big time long shot for Deshaun Watson to be able to get on the field this year, coming off of his second straight Achilles surgery. And that one, the last one just happened in January. So
Right.
if he does come back, there's no guarantee that they're going to activate him at all this year. There's no guarantee. We know what they have said so far is that he will miss a significant portion of the season. So he's either going to miss all or most of the season. And again, I do think that they have enough quarterbacks. They might keep all four. I've written this and I get a lot of pushback on it, but they might keep all four quarterbacks. And I think they'd have to blow through all four of those guys in order for Deshaun Watson to get on the field. I just really don't see it happening unless you get some pretty significant injuries.
Jerry Jeudy was marvelous last season, having over 1,200 yards, clearly a career season in his first year with Cleveland. How do you see him flourishing again in year two with the Browns?
Well, I do think that he has the potential to flourish in this particular scheme, and I actually think that he would do a really nice job with Joe Flacco, because Joe can get him the ball deep and do so many things with him the way that he did with Amari Cooper.
Right.
And I think it could end up being another Pro Bowl caliber season for Jerry if he does hit some of those explosives again with Joe. As far as Kenny, he's going to have to prove that he can make some of those explosive plays or make more of those explosive plays and throw more touchdown passes than he has in the past. He only had 13 touchdown passes in his 2 seasons as a starter in Pittsburgh, and that was over the course of 24 games. Compare that to Joe Flacco throwing 13 touchdown passes in his 5 starts with Cleveland. Now, it's not any kind of an apples to apples comparison. Joe had some not so great defenses that he was going against, and he didn't face the juggernauts of the NFL during that span. But nevertheless, he takes some chances, and sometimes they work out really well for him. And I think that Jerry would benefit from that, depending on where Joe is at in his career right now.
Obviously, no more Nick Chubb at running back. Jerome Ford kind of being handed that running back one duties, but you mentioned Quinshaw Judkins and Dylan Sampson, both rookies. They're going to want to get them touches as well. How do you see the Browns sharing the backfield in 2025?
Well, Jerome came back in large part because he accepted about a 50% pay cut to $1.75 million guaranteed. That's a low number right there. And that doesn't speak to me as starting material in terms of what they are thinking about him as. So I do think that you will see an effective 1-2 punch of Quinshawn and Dillon if both of them are ready to go in all the things that they need to do in terms of blitz pickup and things like that. Now, Jerome has really stepped up his game, I think. I mean, I thought he looked really good in spring practices and in the mandatory minicamp. So I wouldn't forget about him, but I do think that the Browns really want to have that 1-2 punch of Quinshawn and Dillon right now, and then with Jerome as an effective backup to both of those guys.
Interesting. So you think it's more going to be kind of Jerome Ford maybe taking a step back, and maybe that's why the pay cut occurred?
Yes. I think, when you draft those two guys the way that they did in the second round and the fourth round, they're excited about those two guys. And I really think that they are the future of the running game here.
We do this with every preview. Let's take a quick look at the schedule. Again, obviously, we're so far away from the season, but just kind of tentatively what I have about a 4-13 record for this team. Actually starting off 2-0 because Baltimore loves to lay an egg early in the season at home. And then I think that Cincinnati is also a team that struggles early in the season. But I still have the Browns finishing 4-13. I think there are a lot of interesting things in this schedule that we could break down. Overall, just with this schedule, what stands out to you?
Well, it's tough. It's a really, really tough schedule in my mind, and it includes a lot of really good quarterbacks. Of course, in your own division, all you have to do is look right there to find some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And now Aaron Rodgers is added to that mix. So you've got Lamar, Joe, Aaron. Then you've got Josh Allen on this list. You've got some really, really good quarterbacks that you're going to have to face, and it's certainly not going to be easy the whole way through. So the other thing that stands out to me about the schedule is they have they start out with those 2 AFC North games, and then they move into 3 NFC North playoff teams from last year, and then they have excuse me,
Good.
they have 5 out of 6 on the road that they have to get through. And I think that's going to be a really tall order for them, including against the Vikings in London. So they've got a lot of travel in the early part of the schedule. And if they can survive that, they'll be okay.
Yeah, obviously, I think that week 4 to week 6 stretch is very challenging. Obviously, a Detroit team that's great. We'll see what Minnesota is made of after a 14-3 season. Again, that game in London, as you mentioned, and then on the road against Pittsburgh, no matter who's quarterbacking that team, that's always a very tough environment. Right now, it is a 4th place schedule, but you look, it's currently the 13th hardest in the NFL just based off opponent win percentage from last season. And then per Start Football Analytics, just based on the teams that are playing this year, their projected win total for the coming season, they're saying it's going to be the 2nd hardest schedule in the NFL. So definitely not easy for the Browns at all in that stretch. Also, again, no primetime games in there as well. Look, I mean, you look at the schedule, I think that I truly do think there are some opportunities for them to pick up wins, like maybe against Tennessee or maybe against the Jets. Overall, what do you really find as the ceiling for this team, considering they were an 11-win team a few years ago and a 14-loss team last year?
Well, as you mentioned, the schedule is so meaningful here. It's going to be really, really tough. But I would think that if they can get the turnover differential turned around from what they did last year, that they can double their win total of 3 victories last year. I think they can win 7 games, maybe 8 if things go really well. And that would be dependent on getting some really good, clean quarterback play. It will all come down to that.
If they are going to make the quarterback change, you expect it to come in right after that week 9 bye?
It's hard to say. It depends on where they're at that point. If they still have a chance and they're in the thick of it, and Kenny or Joe or some combination of that are going well, then maybe they continue on with that and give the younger guys some time a little bit later on. I think it all depends on where they're at.
So you mentioned how you said, some of the veterans on this team are saying that the Browns are a quarterback away from possibly contending. You're obviously, you're there at these mini camps, you're there in the environment in Cleveland. What is kind of the expectation from the franchise about what they're going to achieve this year? And if they don't achieve that, what their maybe response is going to be?
Well, I don't think anybody's in the hot seat. I think that they know that they've got these 2 first-round picks next year, and I think that they are looking at this as an opportunity to perhaps go out and find their quarterback of the future next year if that quarterback doesn't identify himself this year. So I don't think that Kevin or Andrew are on the hot seat. I think that everyone's looking at this as a year to go out and try to win as many games as possible, and then to come back next year, see what you can do at quarterback in the draft, and then also see what did you unearth potentially or find in this particular year amongst Kenny, Dylan, and Shador. Do you have a guy in there? Do you have a backup? Do you have your third quarterback? Do you have somebody that can push a rookie next year for the starting job? So these are some of the things.
Mary Kay Cabot, we're really looking forward to Browns football. And obviously, I mean, you're one of the biggest writers in Browns football history. So we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. It means a lot.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. We're going to wrap it up here from Chase's Sports News. I'm your host, Chase Coburn, saying so long. Again, we're previewing all 32 NFL teams' season here on Chase's Sports News. Don't go anywhere. We're only a few down with many more to go.